Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. It is another day, another Wednesday. Brett says, happy Wednesday morning. Yes, this has been a rough turnaround from a relatively late Tuesday night on Table Talk, which we haven't had in a little while. But yesterday, Doug, Cameron, and Retro Nerd Girl joined me last night on the Table Talk channel to talk about the Kathleen Kennedy situation and her retiring from Lucasfilm. And Doug put together a fantastic, basically timeline of Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy. And we talked about some other things as well, like things she had done before Lucasfilm, taking over Lucasfilm. And I thought that was a great conversation. We didn't get done with it, but we were up in the coffee shop this morning. I was talking to both of them, and they'd kind of like to continue that commentary while the subject is still hot, because we didn't get through everything that we would, like to have gotten to. And so we're thinking about doing that Thursday night, going ahead and doing a Table Talk over on the Table Talk channel Thursday night to continue the discussion of Kathleen Kennedy. And so that's probably going to happen. So that's the plan right now. So we're going to talk about doing that Thursday night. Continue that. Let's see. So hey BGD, welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got Mike. Hey, Arendelle Orbit. Great to see you in the comment section. I don't know that I've seen you before. So here I've got water this morning. So here's to you. In what seems like the eternal project, I was going through the Kickstarter page this morning and stripping some things out of it because, hey, Michael, good morning. Because I was sitting here looking at the different kinds of offerings for the cultists, and I've got these miniatures here that I've been sitting here painting, but I am just not happy with the way that they are coming out. I mean, I like the little miniatures, but I don't know if you can see too well here. I just don't think that they're painting the way that I want them to paint, and I've been sitting here working on them because I wanted to be able to take pictures and things like that, but I just I'm not happy. I think they're going to need to be revised. I think some of the I can barely see that. I know. Well, it's not focusing. But at any rate, I think that I'm going to need to revise some of these miniatures. So interesting. But I started taking all of that off the page. I was like, okay, so let's get to something that is just, the book, the movies, the web show scripts and things like that can be done. And I think I'm going to save the miniatures for later because I think they need to be worked on. And that's a shame because I was really excited about them and I was really having fun painting them up. I was like, man, this is not coming out the way that I want them to. So, all right, we're just going to go with what we've got. And I'm looking forward to that. So that's going on. So I was stripping stuff off of the page. So I thought the main topic for today, turn off this heater. I thought the main topic for today would be trying to revise some of our AD&D combat or OSE combat. Like we've been working with the old school essentials quite a bit recently, and I've been kind of thinking about using that for the boys with our games anyway. Oh, well, yes, no need to be so quiet. Great to have you say something. So, but it's great that you've always been here. I want to do something to kind of like what would I do in order to sort of quickly patch up the situation in AD&D or other OSR, OSE kinds of style games? What type of house rules would I put in to try to make that game play more like I wanted it to? Maybe something more like what I'd always been thinking about with Fated Edge. And so I wanted to talk about that. And we can talk about the wounds and vitality system. Actually, I was talking with somebody in the comment section on some of the videos that I did on hit points a while back ago now, hit points, wounds, and things like that. And actually, I believe he and I basically were having the same kinds of thoughts that, hey, in the event that you're working with the inflationary hit point system, should we go ahead and make their meaning more explicit, that they're not always something physical? And then how can we do that also by tracking wounds? And so I've been thinking about that since I played with the boys, and apparently somebody else was putting that together in the comment section as well. So we're going to talk about that a bit more explicitly today. Let's go ahead and do a breathe and sip right here. I've got water this morning in the Witch's Brew mug right here, Witch's Brew. So let's go ahead and breathe and sip. 2 deep breaths, deep inhales, complete exhales, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage, whatever it happens to be this morning. Let's go. Let's breathe. And sip. All right. So there we go. Let's I have some the wounds and vitality up, but let's start by taking a few notes here. See if anybody agrees with like what kind of direction we should be going in. I would say here was the core problem. Let's put some notes up here because I've got some other things to do, but let's say core problem that I noticed, which is, something I talk a lot about is that combat was very random. Well, how many times are you likely, and we could probably have a computer calculate this, or we can calculate this ourselves, but let's not. But still, how many times can a whole round of combat happen when no one rolls 15 plus? And that can be a lot. And I'm just using 15 plus kind of as a general marker here because we've got the Thaco 20 people fighting AC 5 gnolls, and they're basically the same thing coming back, for what the gnolls Thaco was. But the characters had 5 and 4 armor, I believe. The wizard had 10. But going around in a circle when you're going to make, 3 to 5 rolls, how often is it that you're not going to have anything happen? So actually, that's actually why this has sort of happened. A lot, as it turns out. So actually, more directly as to what the problem is, many rounds of combat happened where nothing substantial, or you want to use the word mechanically, changed in the situation. Aaron Dill says core problem lies with the simulation like rule system that's inherently slow and hard to scale well for me. If combat rounds go quickly, it matters less. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. If combat rounds go quickly, it matters less. But rounds of what should have been intense, fight for your life combat. Many rounds happened. Let's see. Many rounds happen where nothing substantially or mechanically changed. And I do say this like mechanically or substantially because people can always talk about, oh, let's make sure that we're, narrating combat effectively. And of course, you try that, or I tried that in the beginning. It's like, oh, you missed. Okay, well, here, let me narrate. But I think I find that people tire of that when they realize that actually nothing's happening. So we can be all flowery with our language as much as we want. But if we've got these mechanics on our sheet that are supposed to do things or the position of the miniatures on the table and nothing is actually happening, then I think it's a problem. And yes, Michael says like that surprise round where nobody hit and then also didn't even hit in the follow-up round hurt the funometer. Exactly. So this is and what should have been and this is not fun. I'm not sure when people are talking about the combat as war or combat as sport or whatever, exactly where I lie and sometimes what people mean by that. I guess I guess I'm a little bit more on the side of like combat as sport, especially in a game like this with the nephews. If you're playing a game where you're not really supposed to be fighting, of course, that's something that a lot of people say with the OSE or the OSR. Oh, you're not really supposed to be fighting. If you're fighting, something's gone wrong, or you've really got to make sure that you stack all of the odds in your favor before you go into battle. And okay, that's great for one style of play. But on the other hand, I'm sympathetic to the idea that, okay, the nephews wanted to burst open the door. That in this case, it wasn't a surprise round on the gnolls, but the same kind of thing. I'm going to burst open the door and try to take out these 2 gnoll sentries. We're fantasy heroes, level 1. But I mean, we're playing fantasy kinds of heroes. Shouldn't we be able to do that without 20 minutes of explanation? Hey, Bacon, this would be a good one to catch up on. Good morning. So BGD says, under your hypothetical circumstance, what was your average to hit bonus for PCs and monsters? So in this case, it was something like gnolls were no autocorrect is not like gnoll. Gnolls were AC 5. Player characters Thaco 20. And just to be clear on the other side, I mean, I think that was Noel right here. Noel, yeah. Okay, Thaco 19. Okay, so Knowles were Thaco 19. So that results in a 15 to hit. Thaco, Noel Thaco. Hero ACs 4, 5, and 10. So that results in something like a 15 to hit. So I think that so this is not fun. So I've got to fix this. Also, so long hit point grind, and associated with this is that long hit point grinds are not fun. And there are two grinding combat is not fun. I think we can fix this with something like vitality and wounds, or I like to call it stamina and wounds. Or and tracking individual wounds, which I don't think is going to be nearly as complicated as some people say. Some people are like, "Oh my God, we got to track individual wounds." I think I got a way to do it that's actually not all that going to be crazy. Oh, hey Barney, let's see. BGD says if PCs and monsters are rolling flat with a baseline 30% of success, target 15, you'd expect that with 3 on the side, less than a 12 chance of a round going by with no one scoring a hit. And yet it happens quite a bit. like happens quite a bit when I had to roll over and adjust their dice. Or roll their dice, to be sure. So Aaron Dill says, I remember Talisman RPG had this thing where if you fail to strike, your target will inflict damage. So you do double duty rolls. So double duty rolls might solve something if managed well, but invites other problems. Okay, that's the kind of thing that I think solves this first problem right here. So exactly what Aaron Dill is talking about. That one solution. Attack rolls can be responded to by the opposition. Because right now, the opposition. So right now, I mean, right now, there's hit or miss. Is 2 binary. Of course, we got hit or miss and then a damage roll. And so you got to go through this gate that's yes or no, and then the damage roll, which is some kind of variable anyway. Could be great, could be not so great. And we even talk about that. Like, I don't like the randomness of the damage roll when it is something like a critical hit. I think what I was having them do, and I think only one critical hit was rolled the entire game. So on a critical hit, the weapon does full damage plus its dice roll. I've seen people just use the full dice, the full weapon damage. I've seen that, and not have them roll as well, because rolling the dice twice doesn't really help. I mean, it helps some, of course, because you've got some kind of a distribution going on there. But still, if it's a critical hit, you find out it actually wasn't really too critical. I didn't even do as much, nearly as much damage as I could have done if I were just rolling once. So we have a random gate here, and then also a damage roll that can be random. So I've seen people just say full damage, and that might be the way to go, because it may be too much to do full damage plus a roll. But nonetheless, at the moment, I was having the boys do full damage plus a roll, but it only happened once anyway. And then a damage roll that is also random. So one situation here, so the solution to that, I think, is make this less binary, so there are more outcomes of the attack roll than just yes or no, if that makes sense. This is just notes right here. But if you've got an attack, something like what Arendelle was just talking about, that, if you roll poorly enough, the bad guy or your opposition, whoever it is, actually gets to fight you. That's changing the situation mechanically. Now, it doesn't, and don't have that person roll or something, but have at least another attack roll. I mean, you'd be compounding if you're like, if you roll low, the opposition gets another attack. Also, I'm trying to do this without increasing too many number of rolls. I prefer not to have like 3 or 4 different rolls if I can help it. Because what's even worse than having, a bunch of rolls go by and then nothing happen is having more rolls, or having your turns go, having to use more rolls to resolve these turns, and then having nothing happen. I don't want to do a whole lot of rolling to find out that, okay, nothing actually changed. Not that. Barney says Shadowrun handled it very well, where every fraction of your total wounds you took, you'd get progressive penalties to all actions, better than very random and potentially punitive critical hit tables such as MERP and Warhammer Fantasy. I have not read Shadowrun. It's incredible that there have been so many Morning Grind episodes, and yet we continually find things that we have not actually covered. Which does include, by the way, does anybody know Torchbearer? I was looking at this, and so this is made by the creators of Mausritter. Torchbearer 2nd E. I might have to get this because I'm kind of curious as to what they're doing. It's not something that I was looking up potential like slot-based encounter or slot-based systems, and this one came up, slot-based inventory systems. So, there continues to be things to look at. So Shadowrun handled it well, where every fraction of your total wounds you took and get a progressive penalty to all actions, better than very random, potentially punitive critical hit tables a la MERP. So I don't know how they do that. I hear it. So is that done well? Because a lot of people, I mean, that seems like a go-to thing to do. But on the other hand, what about the death spiral situation? Do you end up in a death spiral, which might be okay in a system where you're not expected to actually fight all that often? Hey, good morning, John. Mike says, what about the escalation die mechanic, something from 13th age? Starting on second round of combat, but on a D6 down on 1, all players get +1 to hit rolls. This increments up to +6 each round, capped at 6. Starting at the second round of combat, put a D6 down on 1. All players get +1 to hit as we're going up. Well, that's interesting. So that's mechanically forcing everybody to get better as the combat goes on. Escalation die from 13th age. So that's another one. One solution. Another. Escalation die from 13th age. Thank you, John. BG says, rather than trying to go a wound system, the easy panacea for any hit point D20 rollover game like OSE is to double crit hit chance. Natural 19, employ house rules for damage, spikes, and effects. Well, one approach is make misses descriptive to give them more meaning merely on the psychological front. Yeah, and I see, but that's what I was saying in the beginning. That's why I did say that we don't have anything mechanical going on. We don't have something substantial or material. Substantial, maybe that's a word I should be using. Material going on. We can try this psychologically. But on the other hand, I also get tired of having to describe that. Okay, if 6 times go by in a row where they all miss, use flowery descriptive language to describe the misses just sucks. So John says I have my player start with, that's the critical hits. You miss, glancing hit, strong hit, critical hit based on all these rolls. Yeah, something like that. Right, immediate reaction. Hey, Andrew, good morning. Add to the list Torchbearer and Shadowrun. Which edition, however, is another discussion. Yeah, so Torchbearer was the one I was just talking about. So Torchbearer, I do want to check out. I'm not going to buy it right now, but I do want to check that one out. Yeah, so like the monster fights back. So monster can fight back. I mean, this right here, hit or miss, 2 binary, is something that doesn't really play, or it doesn't really mesh well with the current thinking on a lot of RPG design, which is, hey, only roll the dice when it matters. Only roll the dice when something is going to materially change as the result of this. And actually, the traditional AD&D combat system doesn't happen to do that. Or a lot of D&D combat systems. You're going to roll a lot of dice and potentially not a whole lot of stuff happening. Another solution here is to make the PCs just better against the kind of foes they're fighting. And then, of course, one of my favorites that we've talked about quite a bit here is changing up the dice, which the bell curve on the dice does not actually matter, or matters less than you think. So that's not it. I want things to be changing in combat regularly. So Mike says, this is an old school kind of philosophy right here. Old school games tended to be binary. Is there another game that would be a better fit for what you want from the game? Barney says, it depends on the kind of game. If you tried to play MERP or Warhammer Fantasy role-playing like D&D with regular fights, you'd inevitably end up with quadriplegic dismembered before you finish the campaign as a matter of probability. Now, on the other hand, okay, so we did talk about some modern games ignore the attack roll. I believe so. Mork Borg does this, and then also Vast Grim, which my friend Brian does, also does that as well. So some games ignore the attack roll and just have you roll damage. That's how much, so low damage roll is the only thing you can do. Low damage roll is a less effective attack. But if you're the advantage here is that if what's going on mechanically, if the objective is to drop the hit points, well, that's probably not true because they do have a little bit about armor in there. But this is true enough for the moment. Mechanically, if the goal is to drop hit points are dropping with every attack. Less some armor. So that actually does guarantee that something, the most critical resource that people are dealing with are actually dropping in battle every turn. And I now understand why to do that. Like looking at it from this perspective, I understand why to do that. Everybody gets an attack roll. Actually, is MCDM's system? I forget what it's called. Isn't it doing that? It uses basically attack dice every time. Every time you come up, you're rolling attack dice, right? BGD says, only roll the dice when it matters is often overblown because it ignores the fact that for most people, rolling dice is fun. Sure, a GM can call for rolls at bad times, but combat usually isn't one. I agree largely with that. Rolling dice is fun, but it's not fun when your character is crippled because, okay, the dice just aren't working. Yeah, now I'm definitely going to do that. Yes, on a surprise round, they're just rolling for damage. Absolutely. Aaron Dill says, yeah, rolling for damage immediately and having receiving side rolling to block can work, but might feel strange. Most related video games mastered that to an enjoyable degree. Oh, Pauper Knight. Hey, welcome. Does Karen do that? It probably does. We did go through that one, but I don't remember. BGD says, ignoring attack rolls and going straight to damage technically speeds up the game, but to what end? It also flattens the game, eliminating drama and uncertainty. There are other ways to speed up play. Pauper Knight says, no, attack roll, just armor soak. Oh, armor soak to take damage. Now, I really would like to include that again. So here's kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, so I mean, here was in this, like, okay, what if we did something like roll damage, and actually in a certain sense, this is a lot like the index card system, which has the different types of effort dice. Now we're only talking about combat here. There's probably some way to generalize it, and I would like to be able to generalize it later. But let's just talk about this solely as something that to put into something like this AD&D game, or OSE game, or whatever. Roll damage dice, roll to hit and damage at the same time to get some number. Okay, so instead of speeding up combat in the sense also here that you don't have to look, okay, now I got to roll another die. Okay, why don't we roll all of this at the same time? And let's say, what if damage dice is class dependent? I am becoming more and more a fan of this. So that your class is going to determine what type of damage you do, what damage die you roll. And that can be a lot of different things. We can use a lot more combinations, I think, potentially than just the classic polyhedrals. You know, you could go as far as getting into all of the stuff that Dungeon Crawl Classics has got, but you know, rolling 2d2 or 2d3 or something like that could be fine, could be reasonable. So, you know, so you've got like, you know, the martial classes. So the damage die is class dependent. And I know that Bacon is big on this as well. So, you know, fighter. Well, the question about this would be, is it better to have, what we could probably do, I wonder if we could get like ChatGPT to simulate the fight against the gnolls. I mean, I know I could write the whole thing out in Python, or hey, ChatGPT might write the whole simulation out in Python. They're like, what do we want to have happen? That's how we did War of Kings. Like, okay, if we burst open the door and we fight these gnolls, what actually do we want to have happen, and what's likely to have happen there? You might be able to simulate that. So, like, the question here, is it better to have single polyhedral dice or several smaller ones for a spread, for a normal distribution? In Palladium, hitting is nearly automatic. Need a 5 on a d20 to hit with bonuses. And not being hit requires reaction rolls by the target to dodge and parry. Involves both parties every turn. And see, I am often very sympathetic to defense rolls. And I think that comes out of having played Hero Quest first. I really like having, okay, I attack. Okay, defend yourself. So that's one of the things that when you go to AD&D, it's like, okay, wait a minute, somebody else is going to roll and it's going to tell you how much damage you were hit for. So I'm very sympathetic to that idea. It seems like every time I actually try to design something like that, that's not rolling different kinds of dice like in Hero Quest, you end up canceling out mathematically. You know, if I'm an attack +5 and you're defend +3, and I attack, d20 +5 and you attack d20 +2, and we figure out who, did you outscore me or something, we're both rolling the same random element, and it doesn't. So I end up going away from it. Okay, so Pauper says, the way I do my AD&D second E game is light, medium, and heavy armor have a soak value, absorbing 1, 2, or 3 points of damage, and then a player takes the remainder as hit point damage. And I like that. BGD says, several smaller dice for damage slows down combat, however, incrementally, because you have to add up your dice pool on every hit. Over time, those micro delays add up. That's a good point. Yeah, that you're rolling, tons of stuff. So that is an argument against several smaller dice for a distribution here. Pauper Knight says, increases survivability at low levels. And in fact, I tried, and when we were breaking down dice and then trying to put them back on a d20, that's one of the things that I was actually trying to prevent. Increases survivability at lower level, but at high level with higher damage, it's incremental, almost negligible, and not over crunchy. Perhaps the damage dice are the ones that crit. Perhaps by explosion, which we've talked about. Excuse me. So I don't know. So your fighter, your fighter might be like D8 damage. Let's say we're just going 1. So D8 damage. Your, cleric might be D6 damage. Your wizard, your thief might be D4 damage. Are we going down to, wizard with D2? Because you can even go that low. I don't know. The reason, okay, the response to the response. So what's the negative to saying that, okay, we don't want something just to say that, okay, nothing happened, 0. So the opponent fights back. Okay, what's worse than running in and charging the gnolls and missing everything? And okay, everybody runs in, everybody misses. What's worse than that? What's worse than that is, okay, we run in to attack the gnolls, and instead on our turn, the gnolls attack us and nearly kill us. that would be a problem. And that's everybody likes critical hits when you everybody likes critical hits when they are dealing them out. And somebody else, I saw reading a blog where somebody else was dealing with that. But I don't have a problem because like the opponents or the characters decided to stop, the players decided to stop using critical hits, that we would stop using critical hits when they were subject to them. But why does it have to be symmetric? That would be my question. If it's more fun for the players to be able to deal out critical hits than be critical hit by some foe, then just let it be asymmetric, or just let the big bad guys be able to do critical hits and not all the goblins. Because it is true that when you're tossing a whole bunch of dice at the characters, they're going to hit, like we're talking about the randomness of critical hits and things in MERP. If you're throwing a whole lot of dice against the characters, yeah, they're going to sustain some critical hits, and that's going to suck. And that's just because of the quantity of dice that's thrown against them. So why not let it be asymmetric? That doesn't bother me. We think we look at moving this up for all. I mean, that could certainly be the case as well. D10, D8, D6, and D4. I mean, it's probably better. So I was seeing somebody else. Okay, I'm going to step down here for just a moment when we were talking about that. And we're talking about wounds. Okay, so a problem that I've talked about before that's always bothered me is, what is a severe wound? And actually, I think this is going to help role playing, and also let's see. Yeah, bosses. I mean, I think that's the way I'm going to start running it, because I don't want, I think that's just better. The kobolds are never going to crit you. I'd rather have the source of damage determined by that, like weapon spells and a unique core ability, each class having modifying powers for those outputs differently. Now spells are something different. We're talking about physical attacks here. But I think if you're tracking individual wounds and you have some kind of objective system for determining these wound levels, that's going to help you. And I think that also goes well with what Better with Bacon was talking about, with, like, the more description that you can put into something, the more that other players have something to play off of. That was in a video on Better with Bacon's channel, and I think that's true. But I always feel like I need a little bit of help as we're going by and we're doing damage and things like that. What exactly does a strike mean? How severe was it? That would be great to know, but I feel like I need help instead of coming off the fly on that. So what is a severe wound? And this is relating to the damage up here. Now that can change, but here was the idea. What is a severe wound? That goes immediately to what do hit points mean. I don't think now is the time for to rehash the complete hit point debate. Why is my computer so slow here? What do hit points mean anyway? Because, what is a light wound? In the context of, casting Cure Light Wounds, a 2 hit point wound to a 3 hit point wizard does not sound very light to me. I mean, that's like catastrophic, right? I mean, you've lost 2/3. I mean, you're just about out. Anything else is going to take you. But a 2 hit point wound to a 28 point fighter might not even have taken damage. And so this is a problem that I've had for a while. It's like, how do I even determine what's actually happened here? And of course, the answer is that's so abstract, that there is no answer. But why not provide a better answer to this question? And so I was reading, and I wish I could find this blog. I'm going to have to try to find this blog again. But it was basically a very detailed kind of blog about the different kinds of home rules that they run for. Um, it was an OSR game. It may have been OSE, but basically an old school game like this. So the question here is, if hit points are not supposed to solely represent physical damage, okay, all right, fine, let's take that. And can represent a lot more. Instead of being abstract, or instead of being so open to interpretation or so abstract, why not just concretize that? How you concretize that? And that is a stamina wound system or vitality wound system. You know how we were talking about with hit dice earlier, that, well, if people really like to play this way and it's more fun this way, and maybe this one better represents what people want anyway, rather than just saying, okay, the rules are as they are and then fudging them, why not just change the rules so they're actually something that that represents the way you want it to do? I think in this case, a stamina and wound system makes sense. This codifies what is physical damage and what is not. Then you just know. Okay, you took HP, but it was off of your stamina or off of your vitality. So you actually didn't get hit. And that can be whatever you want it to be. That's like, the fighter classes are getting more of these things. So when they're attacked, they are actually blocking, dodging the attacks, but it's wearing down their, their fatigue. Or, if they're a cleric, like you're in, the Odyssey or something, the god does touch the spear at the last moment to have it sail away or something. And that's true. So you can have all of that, and you're also very clear at this point about what the actual wound is. Let me go here. Adding HP to monsters doesn't just make them tough, it creates a steady slog of trying to wear them down. Giving monsters damage spikes adds more kill or be killed drama in less time with more swing. Hey, everybody, let's go around and just try to grind away hit points. It depends on how many hit points they have too. The One Ring 2E, which we have looked at, have HP acting more like stamina, guard, grit, where if it's depleted, the enemy is open to critically hit you, but at any time a piercing blow can be landed, which inflicts a wounded condition, which is a lot like this, because in a lot of these systems, critical hits, for instance, also go directly to your wounds, and that your wounds will be taken after your stamina is depleted, although there are other situations like where it goes directly to wound, like if you are thrown into a pit of lava. Okay, well, then your stamina doesn't matter. You're going straight to wounds. So this system, of course, we played with this system, and my friend Wild Barley, who sometimes is a big fan of this system, it was in the D20 Star Wars system, and then is now part of the SRD in the third edition Unearthed Arcana. So I'm thinking that'd probably be a good idea to import this over here. All right, 4E and other games have used the equivalent of a bloodied condition where mechanical effects come into play. Jason says, lots going on in the comments today, which is fantastic. Jason says, Havoc system, I allow only the first point first hit point per attack beyond that. Say then we can determine Whoops. Well, here I am. Hang on just 1 second. Let me get my camera back up and running. Can you hear me anyway? At least you know that you're here. Okay, audio back. Yeah, I'm trying to get my camera back. Hang on. Yeah, my camera software is not responding. Let me try to get it back. I told you my computer was acting kind of weird a second ago. There we go. All right. There we go. Let's see. But this, okay, so this allows me to also calibrate. So that's what I was talking about. So this allows you to calibrate damage. However you spell calibrate. Okay. How many points of damage are you supposed to have? And this is when the OSE, now another reason that I'm really liking these kind of the old school as a base system to build on is because this guy was saying he plans all of his games around the fact that 6 points of damage kills a normal man. So what if we did the same thing? 6 points of damage kills a normal man, which seems pretty reasonable within the damage thresholds that you already use in Dungeons and Dragons. That seems reasonable. When you think about our types of heroes here, sure, a fighter might be up to 8 hit points. If you're talking about level 0 character can be what 4 or 5 hit points, whatever. But okay, if you're actually adventurer class, okay, you've got some classes that are a little bit better than that, but a little bit better doesn't matter. I mean, that's fine. It's even good because you're supposed to be a little bit better. If you've got some that are about that, and then something who doesn't have quite the body development might be a little bit below that when you're talking about hit dice. So that doesn't bother me, and it seems to fit pretty well here, that the idea that, okay, 6 points of damage kills a normal man, and then that's what you calibrate. Calibrate damage to that, which is your wound threshold. Calculate wounds according to that. And that also means that we probably, if things are hitting, we're not going to be going around in combat a whole lot, trying to get rid of a whole bunch of hit points, especially at reasonably lower levels. So this says, okay, so how many wounds do you have? Well, normal men are going to have about 6. And so up here, if you're looking at damage dice up here, this is like, okay, so this would be like an average of 10 or 8 and 3 and 2. This kind of tells you something about how likely somebody is to be able to kill someone in one strike, assuming that you're actually dealing physical damage, you've gotten around their stamina, and you've gotten and your damage is going straight to actually their wounds. So the fighter should be able to do that. You would think the fighter would be able to slay someone very easily. And that does seem to be the case, especially if you're thinking about this in terms of, okay, a first level fighter is in a fight with like just a 0th level normal guy. I would think the fighter would be able to kill the 0th level normal guy. Well, at the moment, I know that it seems like I'm doing a lot of violence to the system right now. Basically what I'm trying to do is go from, okay, how is this supposed to play, and then back it into something like OSE. So that's why that diatribe was important here. This going down here to talk about, okay, stamina and wounds, and then we'll just rescale this so that you're not really going to be getting all that many more wounds throughout all of your leveling up. So I think it'd be interesting to put together a table like that. If you're going up to whatever, like the 14, level 14 and something like OSE, your wounds are going to cap out. And I can see something like, a barbarian might have 12, something like that. So, you do have a class perhaps that is that's its big advantage, is that, man, it is big and bulky, and so barbarian might have 12, and then you go down to the fighter, at 10 or 8, or maybe the barbarian has 10 or whatever. So you end up with that, and yeah, they might go up a little bit, a few points. Find out exactly how to do that, but basically you're not really changing your wounds as you go up. But what is going to change is your stamina. Do you have this? You have this written up someplace, Jason? You're talking about the Havoc. Is this someplace that, like, we could post it to the Discord server or something? 8 body and 4 fatigue. Oh, it was on Chaos. Oh, it's okay, cool. Well, let me look it up. Let's go over and check out the Havoc Kickstarter. Oh, Havoc, that's a tactical card game. Wait, is this the combat card game? Post a link, if you will. A website. It probably did not. It probably bounced a link to the website in the chat. Free Havoc. Oh, got it. Okay, we've looked at this. It's been a while. Here, I can put the link right here. Free Havoc. There you go. So that's there you go. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. I'm glad to be able to share that. We read, because I think we actually did read that. I think we did read that a long time ago. We were planning a table campaign RPG based on it next. Interesting. Well, let us know how that goes. So where was I going here? Okay, now you could adjust. So that gives you the bonus with your damage right there. Now, also, this does mean that, okay, and then damage becomes the difference between the targeted to hit and the roll. That does provide your scaling right there. So this does mean also going to have to move away from Thaco, which is disappointing because it was fun to have the boys playing with Thaco and all of that. But on the other hand, there were times during the game where having just a bonus to add to something to resolve an action seemed to make a lot of sense. And all of a sudden it wasn't present. And I missed that. But in this, if you're talking about, so this is at the moment, we still may do something about this D20 later, but D20 plus damage die. So I guess damage is equal to armor class minus D20 plus damage die, something like that. Of course, damage type is determined by weapon. Give weapons other stats than damage. This could be like range. So damage type would be important. Type of damage. Computer's hanging up again. Oh yeah, I got that backwards. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, if we're going in the other way, it would be this. Yeah, exactly. Type, speed, reach, those things. Let those things be factors of the weapon, which is why that you would want to change different, to have different weapons. But that still says that, hey, the fighter is the one who is most skilled in fighting. Okay, see you later, Mike. Oh, we are here at an hour, but that's all right. I'm gonna keep going a little bit. I guess we're just gonna type up the notes here at the moment. So yeah, so this does, the fighter is good at fighting, whether you hand him a club or an axe or a sword. The fighter is still going to kill you because the fighter is doing D10 damage in this right here, and 6 points of damage slays a normal man. So fighters are good at fighting, and that's also, then you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of different other skills and things like that. These are the adventuring classes. This is what the fighter is supposed to be doing. But then why would he pick different kinds of weapons if it's D10 damage all the time? It's because you've got damage type, speed, reach, etc., etc. And I think that that's going to be very important. And you have seen that on some of the cards, like the Axion Quest cards that have for Hero Quest, that have different weapons that actually have some stuff on there, that differentiates them, and I like that. The core 2E version of Index Card RPG relies heavily on tags that give specific weapon mechanical characteristics beyond their damage and damage type. Yes, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So that gives you the variety right there. Then you've got the idea of damage still needs to be weapon stat, if only to an add to the class die. I mean, it could be. It could be. Well, okay. So actually, in a more complicated way, Jason said, I agree with you, Jason. Actually, this this is ending up as a much more complicated kind of thing than I was like, hey, we're looking for some kind of patch here. Let me see. I did start to make a character sheet because actually over here, this should be more complicated. And in fact, you could have a damage table. Table by class. So, for example, one-handed weapons. Like I think I actually had like small one-handed, and two-handed. I don't know if we need ranged. but you could have. I'm actually seeing a situation where every class has its category, as its damage by category here. Maybe a category of weapon. Would that do kind of what you're talking about, Jason? First patch is to roll back that to the character to character or monster hit die, and then yeah, the giving some extra attacks there. Here we go. The reason Havoc went to cards is we could have a fine gradations of both weapons and fighters. Adjustments to a 25 card deck are much finer than a +2 or 2 times. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That is the major advantage of a deck-based kind of resolution. I agree. The solution to faster, more entertaining OSE combat doesn't have to be complicated. Your myriad choices narrow down significantly once you decide on your priorities and address with changes. Yes, and well, and also it's not the character. You know, I'm big on pre-generated characters and everything being sitting right in front of the character anyway. So it's not like you're having to consult tables every time. Like you're gonna know what the damage of your sword is, what you roll when your sword comes up. It's right there on your the what you had to do to compute that is less important to me because if you're not doing that on the fly, that's just something that's sitting there on your character sheet. So if you've got something that just is coming off of stamina, so stamina is just subtracted from the whole, the whole pool, right? If you're taking wounds, that's something else. Oh, let me see if I got this. Yeah, okay, I'll show you this. Well, I'll show you that later. Like, okay, I was also trying to fit it all on a half of an 8.5 by 11 card, and that's looking difficult. 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, because I think that's. I feel like I should be able to put an entire character on that, but man, I do have a whole bunch of different complicated options here now. Or things to write down and have on the character sheet to make sure it's in front of you. Wounds are different. They are not just taken from the pool. Each is tracked because you're not going to have very many of them. If 6 of them kills a normal man, well, you might not even get a wounded condition because you might go down. But at most you're going to have 6 wounds if every time you're hit you're dealt 1 point of damage. So we're not trying to with the stamina allows you to have a pool. It's like, okay, you take 3 or whatever, okay, that goes down. But then once you get into wounds, then you're actually talking about you can actually talk about what happened to the character from a role-playing situation. And then we can also say we can have wound categories. And I would do this through cards, which is something like a light wound. Let's scroll up here. Moderate wound. Heavy wound. And then grievous wound. And if you're basing it off of 6 points is for the normal person, well, then you start to say, okay, well, that makes it easy then. A light wound is 1 to 2 points. A moderate wound is 3 to 4. A heavy wound is 5 to 6. A heavy wound is enough to kill a person. And then a grievous wound is something like 7+, which is enough to fell even the mightiest of men, and is the kind of stuff that you're going to have to be dealing out to, dragons and things like that. then you know, okay, then I'm not trying to scale. A problem was trying to make all the wound categories proportional to the amount of hit points that a character has. That just never seemed like it was going anywhere. That was too complicated because everybody has a different number of hit points and how many times you have to recalibrate wound thresholds, et cetera, et cetera. It just wasn't working. So when I was reading that about, hey, just calculate all of this according to the normal man. Now it could be that we go to 8 hit points or whatever. I don't know. But, 6 hit points seems to be the way that the OSE kind of does it. And the weapons seem to work around that pretty well. Then light wound, moderate wound, heavy wound, grievous wound. There you go. And then what I would do here, I would use card. And that gives you something to narrate right there. And maybe you say something like, description is flavor. This is very likely to kill a normal man outright. It also gives you something for the NPCs. Like, okay, what did you deal? If you're not going to have everybody fight to the death, which I did not have, like what type of situation are they in? Have they sustained a heavy wound, which is very likely to kill a normal man? But if I know that, if I was just hit for 5 points of damage and I've got a 5-point wound, even if I have like 8 hit points or have 9 hit points, something really gnarly happened to the PC and they're still standing and they're still coming, or something really gnarly has happened to the NPC and they might not want to fight anymore. They've sustained something that might have killed somebody else, and this would wounds that would kill. The normal man. And I think that the higher the level of grievous wound, however you spell grievous, yep. The more likely some kind of secondary effect. Description is flavor. So you've got role-playing opportunities here. What exactly happened to me? Role play it, but then perhaps at some point there is actually some mechanical effect. If you want fewer rounds, increase crit hit chance damage spikes. If you want narrative support, tie mechanical penalties to crit hits and or XP level. If you want realism, have an actual sword fight. Let's see. Well, anyway, so that's kind of what I was thinking about. And then I think I would put these things on cards. Put the wounds on cards that provide some type of description. That helps you out with the role playing at the table. You've got something to reach for that's actually going to have some type of description on there that's going to tell you something. So, and I'm thinking that, okay, could you have a card stack for each kind of wound? And then have different descriptions based on damage type. Card can even be, I'm thinking card could even be disposable. Or well, in the sense that you can write on it. Some people will hate that. But the intention is, if you are wounded, you keep the card. That way, that helps you with your wound tracking. Okay, so your wound cards, how do you know that you've got 3, you've got 1 light wound and a heavy wound? Well, it's because the cards are just sitting right there in front of your table, right in front of you. Andrew says, I think realism is too much paperwork. Different injuries have different impacts on a person. Pain is a wild card. Yeah. Well, that's always, plus healing time minus magic would take too long. You blew out your ACL, spend 6 to 12 months in a medieval rehab. But that does, so you can get back, and I'll have to review the actual wound and stamina system. But one advantage of this system is that although it might be more difficult to heal from wounds, being that we know this is not something, the stamina points over here are not something that's actually physically damaged. I think these systems typically let you get stamina back a bit faster. So in a low magic system, yeah, watch out from being wounded, but you're actually more capable of springing back into the fight because the stamina might be a resource that you can get back faster. Which that might even be an advantage from the perspective of, okay, fighting in combat and recovery. Okay, we're heroes. We went into combat once. Now narratively, this guy has a moderate wound. We know that, but our stamina is back. Like, what do we do? Check the what happened to you. Also, this is going to reverse, see, higher damage. Higher damage indicates hit location. Rather than something more GURPS-like. Which would be hit location determines severity. Okay, if you're hit in the head, now damage type also in GURPS will allow you to multiply damage. So there's damage and there's injury in GURPS. So your weapons will have, if it's a slashing weapon, then that's actually going to modify the damage as injury, and then also your hit location will. So taking a sword into the head is bad news. That's why you wear a helmet. But in this case, I don't think that's appropriate for something like this. I think the reverse should be the case. If you roll high, and so thus high damage, what does that mean? That means you hit a more critical location. High damage means, neck or whatever. So add that into the card situation right there. Jason says wound equals acute effect until discarded. Injury condition from severe wounds causes penalties until fully healed. Useful distinction. Injury condition. A tax bracket approach to hit points and hit point recovery seems like a lot. I mean, maybe it will. Maybe it is. Prefer wound card drawn determines critical hit location myself. Yeah, wound cards have qualifying damage types. Like this type only sticks if it was slashing damage, or doesn't for slashing damage, or smashing damage for slashing damage. Yeah. Right, because it's too much to try to have a deck for like different levels of injury plus damage type. So you kind of keep the damage types small and significant, and then try to make sure they're written on a single card, which is something I just have to try through layout. But it seems like it would work. So I wonder if you could do something like this and maybe give this to ChatGPT and tell it to, okay, I need some kind of system, whether it just runs it itself or whether it generates some type of Python for it. They're like, all right, let's figure out what happens when the PCs charge into the into the gnolls 100 times or 1,000 times or something like that. Okay, so I did like this right over here. I'll show you this, and then we will move on and do other things today. See, I was trying to like have the idea over here, like, okay, what if you've got, so like your stamina over here. I zoom in. I'll zoom in. Need to zoom in more than that. Stamina, max, and current, but like here's your wounds, right? How many wound points you have? Like you could write them down here on your character sheet, but it needs to have a place for them on the character sheet. But I think a card is a better idea. I was also like, okay, well, let's talk about AC. I am a fan of actually being armed, helping out your AC. That's actually something else that could go with the weapons. Is actually having some kind of defensive capability with the weapons rather than trying to as something to also differentiate them. Like, what's the difference between having a staff and a dagger? Well, one of them could be better armor class if you are armed according to if you're armed in a certain way, which I don't see a whole lot in RPGs. But if you've got somebody if you've got a sword and somebody else does not, it's really easy to hit them. So having something, being armed yourself seems like the first step in being sure that it's actually difficult to hit you. And then you could possibly I was playing around with the idea of the damage, but armor as damage reduction. But I think that would only come into play. See, these things would only come into play, I think, when you're actually taking wounds, because it doesn't make sense for your armor to reduce the hit points that are done to your stamina. I don't think so. Somebody might choose to get really complicated and be like, the heavier armor you wear, the less stamina points you can have. I don't think I would do that. But then also, that's where up here where I was talking about damage. I had improvised small missile thrown, one-handed, two-handed polearm. That kind of takes adjust the problem of, okay, well, let's not have the dagger and the polearm be exactly the same. So Jason says defense with weapons is clutch. Active defense is played as max version. Yeah, maybe we do need to go back and take a look at it. It has been a while. It's been a long time. Or rewatch the morning grind because it's on the morning grind on the channel someplace. All right. Well, anyway, that's just kind of what I was thinking. So that was my thinking that I had put together since the last game with the brothers they're all brothers, my nephews. That was my thinking. And so, all right, we may return to this. I'm going to go work on the cultists now. So I thank you everybody for coming by today. It was great. Enjoy. We will probably be on Table Talk Thursday night. I'm not sure if I don't think I'm going to do a stream tonight because I have to get this Kickstarter page finished. So that's what I'm going to sit here and do. Even though I would love to perhaps stream on something like the situation or something, but I don't think I will. I got to get this done. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to be sitting here at the computer all day. So have a wonderful day. I will talk to you later. Thank you very much for joining me. Later.